Hello, everyone, and welcome to this AskTOM Office Hours session for Database Cloud Service. My name is Kris Bhanushali, and I'm a product manager for Oracle's Database Cloud Services. Our primary objective with these Office Hours sessions is to make sure we get together with our cloud users and answer any questions as you continue to use the Oracle Cloud. And so this gives us a chance to get in front of you, our customers, and answer questions firsthand. So I'm part of the product development team, and on the call we also have some other dev leads and product managers. So as we kind of present, and if you have any questions, feel free to type them on the chat line, and we will answer them. While we answer questions, we also thought this would be a great opportunity for us to kind of educate on our cloud offerings, and especially show you some use case for the cloud. And so for today, we thought we wanted to present how to build web applications really quickly in the Oracle Cloud and the advantages that the cloud offers in terms of agility for web application development. So we have a short presentation. Let me go through the agenda. So this is the agenda for today. I wanted to touch base a little bit about the latest trends in terms of Agile, DevOps, and infrastructure as code. Although I think these concepts are well baked in, they've been there for a while, but they become so relevant to web development that I'll just quickly brush upon them, just so we get the context of the demo that we're going to go do later. Then I'll talk a little bit about continuous integration and how Agile development requires, in a way, the release process be speeded up, and development releases come out more frequently. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of the challenges that happen due to the way traditionally relational databases have been handled. There's some sort of a manual process in between. So we'll look at how the cloud kind of solves some of those issues and what in particular the Oracle Public Cloud services offer. And then I wanted to actually spend most of the time actually showing you a demo of an application and showing you how it goes through its life cycle. So we'll take an application and show if there are changes to the app that are multi-layered, multi-tiered, how can in the cloud you do that really quickly, and what tools are provided for developers especially to be able to kind of do the whole end-to-end thing, end-to-end development, including database code, and roll the application out. So really quickly, I'll go through, this is the traditional way software is developed, most appropriate, I guess, for on-prem kind of software where, every year you release a software, ship a CD with your software on it. This kind of makes sense, where in the beginning you gather all the requirements, and then it goes through a waterfall phase of design, build, test, and then release. And this model kind of worked quite well for a long time because there was plenty of time in between these phases, right, to procure hardware and to provision databases and test environments and all that. So it kind of worked fine. But as you move to the web, where you want to ship the product as soon as possible to your customer. You don't want to wait until the entire product is built in completion, right, up to the final requirement. But you want to keep gathering requirements, build and ship the product, and iterate over that, so that you get feedback from your customers, and you're able to kind of improvise a product as you go. And this is the whole promise of Agile. And so as the slide shows, you continuously keep developing in what is known as continuous delivery or continuous deployment. These are some of the concepts of Agile. I won't dwell too much on it, but typically what happens is in a continuous integration or automated deployment pipeline, the developers basically write the code, and as they push the code to an integration system, to a repository, it basically triggers a set of tests. If the tests fail, then it becomes very clear which developer's code actually failed the test, and so it's easy to kind of pinpoint the issues and go back and fix them. And this happens in parallel, so multiple developers might be coding and pushing changes. So the the development process definitely speeded up. And then the entire pipeline is set up so that if a build passes, then it can go on to further testing in UAT or go for deployments. And so many actually, mobile app developers and even web, major web applications, for example, the likes of Facebook, for example, or Uber, they would, deploy changes to the application multiple times an hour, so that product is constantly getting refreshed with, minor small changes. And this is also better in the sense that if the change is small, the chances of failure are also small, right? Because you're doing a very small, manageable amount of change at a time. So this is what is known as continuous delivery. Now, what are some of the challenges to continuous delivery? Of course, yes, you have multiple developers. They need their own copy of the database. And so if it involves provisioning the database manually, then that's definitely becomes an issue, because then you have multiple people involved and a lot of handshake in between and back and forth. So that slows things down. When it comes to the database, generally there is no integration with the source control system. So either code is pulled off of data models and passed via scripts manually to the developers or the DBAs, and then that it's manually provisioned. And there's no way to control the database code. There's PL SQL build schemas, all of that. No way to kind of manage that in a version control system and handle that as code, basically. And then there's other things like how do you do test automation, build automation, all of that. So as a result of that, kind of it slows down. Provisioning is definitely one of the biggest issues. And so we want to see what can be done in the Oracle Cloud. So as we've kind of expanded the Oracle Database Cloud Service and brought new features to it, we've tried to address some of these issues by really being focused on the agility and being able to provide the database instantly, within a minute, I'd say, right? So we'll see how we do that. Integration with our developer cloud service for source code management, and then test automation. So we'll take a look at some of that and through this demo. So this demo is about an e-commerce web application that is going to need a change, and these changes are going to be in the UI, in the Java class files, as well as the database. And in the database, we'll need modification of a PL SQL procedure. We'll need a new table to be created. We'll need new indexes to be created. We need seed data to be added. So multiple database changes. And I wanted to show how, as a developer starting out on this project, how can I basically just have a laptop and be able to do all of this provisioning of the database, building the database, testing the code end to end, and testing everything end to end on my laptop, and then eventually rolling this out to my integration test site and showing a continuous test, continuous deployment pipeline. So it's quite a few moving parts. I hope everything works fine the way I expect, but let's see how it goes. So first off, I wanted to start off by showing you what the application looks like. And this is a sample app. I know real life applications are going to be a lot more complex, but this is what I can do in a demo. But think of this fictitious company called Game Shop, and which is in the business of selling games online, right? So and it's a small company. It started off as a single store. So as a user, if I come in and register myself, let's say cloud.admin. Okay, it's already registered. So let's say I log in as that user. Uh-oh. I'm going to come in as a different user. Okay, I'm logged in. And so I log in and I browse games and I pick a game. If I like it, I say buy this product. And I'm just going to say buy these items here. So when I do that, it takes me to the buy items page, which is very simple. You enter name, cell phone address, and then the store location, right? And the store location is hard coded here. As you can see, that the store had, the company had just one store. And now the change is that the CTO says you need a drop down here instead of this, and you want to add 4 stores, right? So, let's assume that across the country there are 4 new stores that have come up in major locations, and this now needs to be a drop down. So which means there's going to be changes on the UI, there's going to be changes in the back end, and also the architecture is such that you now want to have this to be a table of its own, so that in the future, if a new store comes up, all you do is just add the metadata and it should show up here, right? So you want to make all those table changes, etc. So now let's see, as a developer, how do I go about doing this and rolling the change out end to end without as much as even, directly creating a database or logging to a database? Well, not creating, at least keeping that whole database aspect to a minimum. Okay, so any questions so far? Yeah, there's a question on the chat line that says, can you show us the DB code changes? Yes, I will show you the DB code changes, and I'll show you the whole script. But just give me a moment to show you how we go about it, right? So first thing, this is my Oracle Cloud My Services dashboard, and it shows you all the services that you are subscribed to. So you can see there's Developer Cloud Service, which we're going to use. There's Database Cloud Service right here, but there's a whole bunch of other things: Application Developer, Compute, Load Balancer, Big Data. Okay, so whatever you subscribe to will show up as a tile here, right? So in our case, I'm going to choose the Database Cloud Service, for example, to begin with, and then the Developer Cloud Service. These are the 2 services. And by the way, we are also going to use Application Container, because we're going to auto deploy the app to a container in the cloud and see how that goes. So by the way, as you can see, this application is running in my Container Cloud Service. As you can see, this URL is the Oracle Cloud, and I want to show, this is my QA instance, by the way, right? So currently, this is the version of this software, of this application, basically. And so I'm going to make a modification first locally on my laptop, and then I push it to the cloud, where after integration tests, it's going to modify this application, so you should see this change. Okay, let's go about doing it. So this is my services page. What do we need? I think we need, as a developer, I need my own copy of the database. So I need to make a clone of an existing database that has the seed data in it, right, and the current state, and then I make a copy, and then I can do whatever I want with it without stepping on anybody's toes. So I go back, I go to my Database Cloud Service, and I have these tabs open in advance so that we save some time here. This is my Database Cloud Service page, dashboard, and you can see kind of shows me how many instances I have, how many CPUs I'm using, all the basic stats, and then my database is somewhere in here, so I can search for it. I'm going to call it. Okay, so here's my Game Shop dev container, and I call it a dev container because I have multiple databases in there. So we'll take a look at that, and let me go ahead and open up the page. This is the dashboard for the Game Shop dev container page. So I've connected specifically to that particular machine, and I can see the database dashboard. Kind of gives you a high-level monitoring overview in terms of what's going on with the database, number of sessions, waits. So all the basic stats that typically you would be interested in to see if your database is working fine. And so in this menu here, if I go to SQL Developer, I get more stats. I get information about objects and stuff. But right now, what I'm interested in is creating a clone of one of the databases that's in this container. So I'm going to go to the tools here, DBA tools, and say manage. And as you can see, I have multiple databases running. I have the seed database here, which is what my application, which is what I'm going to need. But then I also have other databases. I have a mobile app DB, CRM DB. So as you can see, I can just keep adding pluggable databases to this container, and basically it just makes it a lot easier to manage them together and have one kind of a development environment where all my databases can reside. So what I want right now is I want to make a copy of this GameShop SeedDB for myself. So I'm just going to say clone, and I'm going to say snapshot copy because this is going to make it really fast, and within a few seconds actually I'll have my own copy of the database. So I do that. I'm going to call it, let's say, Kris DB. This is my own personal database space, and then I need the passcode for the encryption for the TDE wallet, because everything in the Oracle Cloud is encrypted. So to make a copy, it'll need that. And by the way, this is real time. There's no, we are just going to wait it out and let this cloning complete. So it takes about 20 to 30 seconds. There you go. So my cloning is completed. I have my own database. This is all it took. And if I go here and say, show me the connection details, I have the connection details here for it. So this is what my database is called, krisdb.oraclecloud.internal, right? So what I do is I take this and now I go to my code, the base code that I have. So by the way, before I do that, I should show you what my developer cloud service looks like and what the code for this application looks like and where it resides. So there it is. So this is my developer cloud service Git repository right here. And this is the service dashboard. So as you can see, I can create my builds here. As I push changes to my repository, you can see them updated on the dashboard here. So, well, the starting point would be I would basically do a git clone, right? So I could basically do, copy this and say git clone gameshop.git, get all the download to my laptop. So now I have the code on my laptop, and then I just provision the database. So I can connect my code to the database that's running in the cloud. So let's go ahead and do that. I've done some of it in advance. There you go. So you can see GameShop. I'm going to go to GameShop folder, and I already have the code downloaded here, right? So I have the download done, and let's open this up in editor. So I use Sublime here, and this is my code. So I'm going to first go to my build.sh, and I have to now point it to this database that I've created, because this is the one that I'm going to run against. So there it is. All right, so I'll come back to this. This is my build file. I'm using Maven for build. As you can see, I installed the JDBC drivers, build the packages, and then I use a flyaway package to deploy my database code. So I'll tell you more about this. So now that I have my database set up, this is all it took, right? I went to the database container, created a clone, took the connection string, and pasted it here. So that's all it takes for the app to now connect to the database when it's built. Then let's go to the changes now. So for simplicity, my Java changes, my class file changes, my UI changes, and all of these are pre-coded. So if I go to main, and if I go to web app, there are two pages. I had to make changes to this file called buyitems.jsp. This is the front end, the JSP page, and so all the things I need are now coded in buyitems.jsp.new. So all I have to do is flip the name, right? So I'm just going to call this buyitems.jsp.old and make this the current one. So instead of new, I'll just remove this. So this has become my new buyitems.jsp. Okay. Okay, so that's my JSP change. Now comes my class file change. So I go back to product, and again, this is very relevant to the application, so don't mind if you don't follow this. I mean, this is my app, so I know it well. All you need to understand is that whatever code changes you need to do to your app, you basically go ahead and do that in your editor. So I've just pre-coded this, and I'm just going to call it byitems.java.old, and the new file will now become a current file. So let's call this byitems.java. So I finished coding my class file, my front end, and then finally let's take a look at the SQL. Right, so somebody asked me if I could show the SQL code changes. So here it is. Right, so as you can see, even my SQL is basically part of my code base, right? So I have all of these by version. I start off by cleaning everything up. So these are all my drops. So all of these tables that are involved are right here. My build, initial build is right here, right? This is what I use to build the schema. And then the location feature is coded here. So for that change that we talked about, to add that drop down, I have to create a table called delivery locations and insert seed data. As you can see, I'm inserting seed data for each of the new stores that are now available. And then basically add a foreign constraint, relating it to the order details table, and then also make a change to a PL SQL procedure to add the location ID in here. Right? Basic changes, but you can see that they are at multiple levels, right? So this is my script, and this is what I want to run in the database first. Connect to the database and run this thing in there, and then basically deploy the application. So let's call this version 1.2 because that's what my database is going to be at. So v_1.2. There you go. So 1.1 is already in place. I'm going to take the database now to version 1.2 with this migration. I go back to my Git, make sure I add these changes in here, commit, let's call it location feature, feature added, and it says yes, I changed these files. Okay, everything looks good. So now that it's good, I'm going to go ahead and build it locally. Okay, so as you can see in the end, after the build completed, after the compilation was done, the migration did complete. So the web application, well, the database actually got taken to version 1.2. And so I have just completed compiling my application, and now let's run it and see what happens. So let's see where my war file is. Okay, so it's right there. So I'm going to say java -jar. Okay, so I'm running it on my local host with the database in the cloud. Let's open up a window, and this is not here. Okay, so my application is running, as you can see, on my local host here, and I'm going to go ahead and register a new user. I'm in. Let's shop for a game. Don't need a translation. Say buy this product. by items. And yes, I do have a drop down. So as you can see, my changes took effect. So I'm very pleased with this. Everything is working fine, as you might test everything online. And now I have to go back and push this change to the cloud, right? So because I want to kick off that integration testing. So I'm going to stop my server here, my web server, and I'll say everything is committed to the repository. So I'm going to say git push. By the way, the remote has already been set here, so all I have to do is just push the changes. So I'm going to say git push origin 1 master. Give it a password for my repository. Okay, and the push is complete. Let's go back to the cloud, to the developer cloud service now, and see this change. Let's see, I'm going to refresh this. Hopefully it'll log me in. There you go. Okay, so I just pushed a commit. You can see that it shows up on my dashboard here. Okay, so my changes are here. Let's, I could have set this up so that as soon as I push the change, the build would trigger automatically. But let's build it again, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say build. Build log, by the way, so you can see as the build proceeds. Cool, so I can see that everything went fine. The build was successful. The database has been migrated to version 1.2 with the location feature now in place. The schema has been migrated. Everything was successful. So I have a successful build. Let's go ahead and deploy this. So I'm just going to say deploy an existing container that's been pre-created here. But even if you want to create a brand new container, a Docker container, by the way, you just hit new configuration, and on the fly you can actually deploy your code to this new container in the Docker service. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to say, let's redeploy it here. Redeploy, and I'm going to say the latest build, number 15. So deploy. And give it about a minute or two, and you'd see that your code gets deployed to the application in the cloud. So right here, this should change to show a drop down. And as soon as this completes, I'll refresh this page and we'll see. Okay, so in about a minute or so, the deployment is now complete. And so if I go here and refresh this page, I see that it's changed because the deployment was successful. We didn't go through the login screen, but this is what the end result is in our QA environment. Okay, so quite a few things happened here. I'll just see if there are any questions. How do you deploy the DB code? So yes, what we've done here is we've used an open source tool called Flyaway, and it's a database migration tool, a Java-based utility that was part of my build. Let's see. So in my build configuration, there's a line item, there's a build job that says use Flyaway to migrate. By the way, this is a Maven build, so the Maven utility would download Flyaway from the repository and then deploy it. So that's what I'm using. There's a few of those out there. You could use Liquibase. Liquibase is another such open source utility. So any one of those two. I like Flyaway because it's SQL based, and I can version control SQL. And so going back to my code base here, so as you can see, this could be generated from a data model, right? So even if you're using a data model, you'll generate it, version control it, and then you'll drop it in your build, and this is how it gets deployed. So I like that, and Flyaway is just great for that. All you have to do is layer your SQLs one on top of another. So if anything else happens, I mean, if there's more changes, I'll version them as 1.3, even if I'm rolling back any of these changes. I would version them forward. So the database is always moving forward. Now let's say that this failed for some reason, right? And I have to go back and roll back these changes. Then I already have coded the rollback location feature. So you can see I'm dropping the table and altering the PL SQL. I will just change this to 1.3, and then that's where the database is going to be. So the schema keeps moving forward. Okay. There's a question that says, how many databases can be in a container? Good question. In my database cloud service, right here, I have a few. There's the upper limit is much higher than something you would ever worry about. So I think it's 1024, if I'm not mistaken, and that changes with every new release and version. It keeps going up. So plenty of room there for you to create multiple databases. And by the way, each of these, what we call as a pluggable database is a fully contained database of its own, complete separate space of its own. And so you can have multiple of these basically, and you can thin clone them if you need to. You can even create new ones by saying create a PDB, and it'll create a blank new PDB that you can then connect to and deploy your schemas. Okay, so no further questions, and I just want to quickly review what we did. So a lot of things happened here, right? As a part of the demo, we were able to take a web application, create a database for it in our dev environment by cloning an existing database. Then we modified our code locally, connected to the database, executed that, tested that everything was okay in my dev environment locally. And then I pushed the code to a remote repository in the Oracle Cloud, where integration test fired, and the build after compilation ran against the QA database, migrated the code for the QA in the QA database as well, and then I was able to successfully execute my application in QA. So as you can see, I did all of that, and nowhere in the whole process did I manually connect to the database or through SQL Plus or even deploy the code. So that's the kind of agility that the cloud brings, and the advantages it brings to developers and DBAs. So I hope you guys liked the session and learned something from it, and keep coming back to our office hour sessions. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.